Hey party people, Oath 12 here and welcome to the 26th Suburban Gooner podcast. The Premier League season is over. To discuss today's games, we've got the normal crowd, so we've got Chris and Ben. How you doing, guys?
You alright?
All good.
And we've got an extra special guest, TheGoonerholic. How goes it, Holic?
It's all right, thank you very much. I had a good day.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
So, who has seen the full games? I know you had the stream up going, Holic. Ben, you've seen the goals, and Chris, you've seen the goals, is that right?
Yeah, I've seen the goals and caught up with a couple of the sort of the text commentary things, so I kind of know roughly how the game went. I've seen a few chances as well, so most notably from Giroud by the sound of it, but in that first half. But yeah, so I'm probably not the best person to start off with. So, Holic, why don't you kick us off, mate?
Well, it was kind of typical of what you've seen lately from start, really. It's Norwich were a little bit more enthusiastic for, say, the first 15, 20 minutes, closing us down because everybody knows that if you can do that for 90 minutes, you can stop us playing. But they got absolutely no cutting edge whatsoever. So I can only remember one half-decent save that Fabianski had to make. And then gradually as the game got on, it was kind of like, remember when we used to play rope-a-dope at the start of the season? I don't think it was intentional, but as the game wore on, we got more and more into it. And as you say, the busier goalkeeper in the end was definitely theirs because a couple of chances fell to Giroud. One he should probably have done better with. One he drew an absolutely great save from near the end of the half. Podolski too had a couple of chances. One he put wide, one that was well saved by Reddy. And so kind of the first half was, well, apart from half a dozen moments, it was a bit of a training exercise. But the second half was when we really kicked in. It was only sort of 10 minutes in. And this is where I can let somebody else talk, because if everybody who's seen that first goal, it was something else.
Yeah, it was incredible. I literally just managed to catch it about 10 minutes before we came on to Skype. Ben, do you want to talk us through it?
Oh, it was just sublime. It was, to sort of carry on with what Holic was saying, the game was similar to the previous encounter where the goals basically outshone the performance. But that first goal, Giroud sort of peels away from the defender, chips it over. Is it 2 or 3 defenders?
Yeah,
I think it was 3. Yeah, and Rambo the technique was just sublime. Got over the ball and it literally pinpoint top corner. It's just magnificent. I've watched it on one of those Vine GIF things, repetitively. It was just magnificent, magnificent. But the first, to be fair, the second, was as equally impressive. A nice team goal. Podolski did very well in the build-up. I think he held off a couple of midfielders and then played some nice interplay with Giroud, and the ball eventually, after a few passes, fell to Jenkinson, and the Corporal got his first ever Arsenal goal. So it was a nice afternoon for him.
I'm going to keep this recording forever where you praised Podolski for something that wasn't a goal.
No, he did very well.
Actually, his contribution to that second goal was a miss kick.
Yeah.
he took it away, Steve.
He meant it perfectly. He meant it.
Yeah.
He meant it.
It was a disguised pass. It was a bloody good one, I'll tell you that.
Chris, have you seen the angle, the Ramsey's goal from the angle behind the goal?
Yeah. I mean, it just looks phenomenal, doesn't it? I think for me, the only thing that slightly sullied that whole moment was that I had to find out about Ramsey's goal via the medium of Robbie Savage on BBC's Football Focus. Now, the fact that he described it as Van Basten-esque, anything that comes out of Robbie Savage's mouth is just, quite frankly, trash. So it sort of sullied it for me. But yeah, I've seen the replays, I've seen a couple of the different angles, and he's turned into some player, isn't he? I mean, if you were to, now that we're at the end of the season, you look back at those 38 games, and he's played in, 2/3 of them? And he has been, by far and away, player of the season. I don't think anyone would dispute that. What do you guys think? Steve?
My wife would definitely agree. She got quite excited when she saw him on the telly earlier. She's a big fan of his. But no, you're right. He's just been phenomenal. And it's no surprise when you look back now that we suffered without him. I was going to ask this later, but yeah, definitely my player of the season.
Oh, sorry, I've completely ruined it. This is what happens when you don't have any kind of structure to your podcast.
I do today. Today I did.
We're running wild. We were going to come on to player of the season in about 20 minutes, weren't we?
Yeah.
We might as well call this a day, lads.
No, I've still got half a pint and a large malt left.
Oh, if only.
How about you, Ben? Play of the season?
Yeah, as you said, I think if he would have stayed fit, it would have been Ramsey hands down. But I think I'll have to go for Mertesacker as mine, just because he's been magnificent and just his personality on the pitch, I think, has swung it for me. There's not many players in the league that have that sort of passion, drive, with a sort of touch of comedy as well. And I think that's missing from the Premier League nowadays. But yeah, I'd have to give it to Mertesacker.
How about you, Holic?
Well, I have to say, definitely for me, it's Rambo, on the basis that if you go back even 18 months, you could not have conceived the advances that he's made this season. He's just been absolutely outstanding on the 2/3 of the season that he's played. I'd agree with Mertesacker, someone who's been available all the time, has been outstanding. And I mentioned too for Koscielny alongside him. I think the two of them together have been awesome.
Mm.
Good shout, good shout. Speaking of Koscielny, actually, and your good friend Robbie Savage, Chris, I think I saw somebody tweet earlier that was he with Keown when he was talking, Chris?
Yeah,
so they did their
a genius again.
They did their team of the season, and Keown chose Koscielny, and Robbie Savage had a go about that because of the goals we've conceded in some of the big games, and then chose Cardiff's keeper.
There's lovely.
And speaking of goalkeepers, what did you guys think of the choice of Fabianski in goal today, being as we did keep a clean sheet, so Szczesny would have been, I mean, I presume he still gets it joint with Cech, but he would have been the Golden Glove winner on his own. What did you think of that, Chris?
Well, apparently not, because Cech has played less games, so apparently Cech gets it, which is slightly...
Oh, so he doesn't even share it.
Yeah, so that's slightly baffling to me, because if Luis Suarez and, I don't know, Fernando Torres, would have got top goal scorer of the season, then they wouldn't exactly say, oh, well, actually, no, it's just Luis Suarez, because he's played a lot less games than you, Fernando, because he likes to take pieces of flesh out of rivals' ears and arms. So we're going to give it to him because he played less games. So why the logic for the Golden Glove not being that? But I thought it was a bit of a strange one, him not even starting. People on my timeline were saying that they thought that it's almost a shoo-in that Wenger will play him in the cup final next weekend. I don't know about you guys, but I would love to see that. But I reckon Arsene Wenger was giving Fabianski a little bit of a run out to make sure there's no element of rustiness, because I don't think there's any doubt that he will play Fabianski next weekend. I'm almost sure of it. What about you? Do you think he'll play that, Ben?
I'm actually on the other side of the fence. I just think he was giving him a last game to sort of sign off and say thanks. Yeah, that's just the way I saw it, because he's done it before, hasn't he, in the build-up with Richard Wright in the FA Cup final, and then he played Seaman instead. So, yeah, I just saw that as his send-off. Yeah.
I mean, Szczesny is the future.
I just think...
He's had such a good season as well, so he deserves to pick up a medal. In my opinion.
And you want that because it's long-term, isn't it? He's still going to be in the squad next season, and how would it be if we win the FA Cup? How would he feel if everyone else had a medal except him? I don't know if that would come into it. Maybe not, because he's got a fantastic personality, and he was interviewed, wasn't he? And he said something along the lines of that Fabianski would deserve it, but he would like to play. But he's got to say that, hasn't he, for his PR machine? So, yeah.
What do you think, Holic? Who do you think will play next week?
Who do I think will play? I think it'll probably be Fabianski. I don't think it probably should be, but I have a feeling that the selection today may have owed something to, well, let's give him a bit of game time before the final, and hey, if he makes a mistake, then I've got a get-out clause. It didn't happen. He's not let us down all season. He's been in every FA Cup game. I hear the argument about, and it's a winning one for me, Chesney is the future. He will be here next year. But Fabianski, although we all expect him to go, hasn't gone yet. And does he deserve to lose his place? I've got an open mind about it. I'm actually far more concerned that the 10 in front of whoever plays in goal plays the way that we can, because that's the way we'll win it. We're not going to win it with the goalkeeper.
Yeah. Absolutely. It almost doesn't. It's almost a little bit inconsequential who plays in goal, because you'd hope that they aren't going to get many touches of the ball at all.
Well, trouble is, it isn't with our record, because in cup finals we've tended to lose because of goalkeeping mistakes. But nonetheless, you look at next week, and there really should be the 10 guys in front of them should be able to look after a whole team, particularly devoid of their 2 lone strikers.
Yep, no, I completely agree. And going back to the goalkeeper issue, I think he will play Fabianski. Agree that I'd love him to play Chesney. I suppose it's a bit of a double blow. No, you're not getting the Golden Glove, and no, you're not playing in the final. But I'm sure he'd take the final over the Golden Glove every day of the week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he'll play Fabianski without a doubt.
I have to be the only person in the world who hadn't even heard of the Golden Glove until lunchtime today.
Yeah, same here, actually. Same here.
Now it's a hot topic of discussion.
Yeah.
It's a thing, yeah.
It's a trophy, okay?
And all of a sudden everybody seems to be so fussed about it, and everyone's outraged for shit, isn't it? It's like, just because we haven't had somebody that could even get remotely close to that many clean sheets for about, since the early 90s, or mid-90s at least, all of a sudden people are fussed about it. There you go. What's worse, in terms of the 10 outfield players that will play next weekend, and what do you think of this, Steve? Apparently, actually, Orholic, did Sanya limp off today?
It looked like it, yes. Certainly looked like it. But he's got 6 days to get himself back into shape. And should he not make it, you've got a buoyant corporal who's ready to stand in, having scored his first goal. He's in a rich vein of form. He was making a late bid for the Golden Boot.
Where was Mertesacker just rested today?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
thankfully.
Yeah.
Because he's played like 792 games, so it's probably a good thing that we allowed the big German, unless he's feeling a little bit poorly after it did turn out from that Paddy Power ad that the milk did in fact turn sour, and he's not feeling so well.
Ben.
Yes.
Diaby played.
It was fantastic. The reaction was marvellous, and it must have been very special for him. He didn't, from what I can remember, he had a few nice touches. He had a moment where he had 2 midfielders on him, and he was by the edge of the pitch, and it's Santi-esque. He shifted the ball from sort of left to right and played it back to Jenkinson, and he got a bit of a cheer for it. But yeah, it's nice to see him, considering that, what was it, 13 months since he last played, so it was fantastic for him to be back in the fold.
He also very nearly set up Sanogo for his, Carl Jenkinson, first goal.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it didn't quite happen. Ruddy had other ideas.
Yeah.
But yeah, the reaction, though, of the Travelling Gooners was brilliant. There was like half a dozen different songs came out for him, which the absolute classics were You've Only Come to See Diaby, which was bettered only by Diaby, He Plays When He Wants.
Love it.
So do any of you think he'll make the cup final squad?
No.
Anybody?
No.
It's tough.
I would say no, because we've got so many returning players. Why would he? I mean, you've got Wilshire's that's just returned and made a comeback again today. Wenger's got so many midfielders that are available. I don't see why Diaby would play. And also, can you even rely on him with that much time out? Ben, Steve, what do you think?
Well, I think he'll be in the squad. He won't get anywhere near the pitch because, as you said, there's other options. But I don't know. You've got to weigh it up. Would you rather a Diaby or a Nicholas Bentner on the bench? I think whoever can decide that has the golden ticket.
Golden gloves,
what do you
golden
think,
boots,
Holic?
golden tickets.
Yeah, golden
It's
ticket.
all golden bollocks, isn't it?
What do you think, Holic? Do you think he'll be in the squad?
Um, I would be surprised if both Flamini and Arteta are available, because I think in terms of your attacking midfielders, you've got Ramsey, you've got Wilshere, you've got Ozil, you've got Cazorla. The interesting one for me actually will be whether Podolski gets a start, given that he's been starting pretty regularly of late. But now that everybody's fit again, but Diaby to get into even the bench when you've got Flamini will be there. Maybe it'll be a toss-up between him and Ox. I don't know, but I can't honestly see it.
Was the Ox even in the squad today? Was
No,
he
not
there?
today. Not today.
So he's touch and go whether he'll be fit for the final.
He'll be back in full training on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll be interesting. Okay, so moving on from the game today and news related to that. Obviously, Koscielny signed a new contract in the week, which I think's excellent news. What was your opinion on that, Holic?
Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely wonderful, because his partnership with Mertesacker, as I said earlier, has been one of the highlights of this season. When they've not been together, today apart, we've kind of struggled. He's obviously a top quality player who is wanted by some decent clubs, so the fact that we've been able to persuade him to stay is helpful, perhaps indicative that players think there's something happening at the club. And the other reason it's important is, of course, the uncertainty surrounding what's going to happen with Vermaelen. Is he going to go? Is he not? I don't know, but certainly you need to keep at least those two, and if Vermaelen's going, bring in some decent replacement.
How about you, Ben?
Yeah, it was marvellous. Best centre-back in the league, in my opinion. Sanya obviously was standing centre-half today with him. And again, he was flawless, wasn't he, Sanya? It's going to be... I think I saw on the Arse blog match feed that he made 11 out of 11 clearances. I think it's magnificent to have someone of that ability, but obviously, if we believe reports and everything, and that interview on it, as it being sport, that he said, I don't think I'll be at Arsenal next season, and it's going to be a massive loss, isn't it? And if Vermaelen wants to go, it could be a problem. I would like the club to be a bit firmer on Vermaelen and say, you're staying, rather than being pushed over, because I think if you're going to try and get rid of Vermaelen, you'd end up selling him for sort of, I don't know, 8 to 12 million possibly. And then to bring someone in of that quality is going to cost a lot more. So hopefully they can sort of put their foot down and keep him at the club.
What's your opinion, Chris?
Well, I think it's good. It's good that we've got that continuity through the spine of the team, and Koscielny is brilliant for Mertesacker as well, isn't he? Because he is the sort of if you think about the Sol Campbell, Kolo Toure days, and Sol was the powerful sort of strong centre back, and Toure was the one with the recovery pace, and Koscielny can play that role. The amount of times when if there's a ball that's gone into the channels that you see Koscielny's the one chasing it down. It was vital that we got that signed up, and also in terms of avoiding yet another saga. I mean, we've sort of got a saga this summer by the fact that Sanya's off, but at least we all know that's happening, and at least we know that we've secured other key players over the last year. So it was really, really important that we got Koscielny nailed down, because let's face it, he would have been off next summer, I would have thought, if he hadn't have signed this new deal, because the club would have got to the worrying moment where they think, oh, well, we've got to make some money from a player that's got a year left on his contract, and we'd have found ourselves in yet another position where we're having to fight around for a replacement and not being able to keep that continuity. And the fact that we've had that continuity in the summer last year, and even the players being able to have a decent pre-season together, I think had an impact, and the unity that they had. I mean, everyone, like John Cross of the Mirror was saying in pre-season last summer that the players looked quite close-knit as a group, and they were playing quite well. And even back then, people were talking about, the form of Ramsey and the form of some of the players. So I think that continuity is really important. And all we need to do is add a few players to the team and the squad in the summer. Easier said than done, I know. I'm sure Dick Law is running here, there, and everywhere. So we'll wait to see what he says. But like you said, Ben, that keeping Vermaelen might be an important factor.
Mm.
In terms of additions, Holic, what do you think, or what would you do in terms of the right back position? Sanya looks like he's on his way. Would you use Jenkinson as number one, or would you sign somebody to try and compete for that number one spot?
Now, there's an interesting question. The reason I hesitate is that you would probably, if you've got ambitions of landing the title, you would probably want to go and buy a top-notch right back next season. But we've just been talking about positions and uncertainties about who's going to be staying, who's going to be going in the summer. Jenkinson, when he gets a run of games, I think is a perfectly acceptable right back. When he gets a run of games, he looks solid enough. And there would be other priorities for me on that basis. But that also depends a great deal on whether you have someone like Bellerin ready to act as a stand-in, because is Jenkinson going to be fit for 50 games next season? Probably not. So you have got kind of an area behind him that may or may not be a weakness. I haven't seen enough of the lad to know whether it is or isn't. But I'm just thinking of the other priorities. I mean, there's no question they need another goal scorer. There's an argument that says before you buy a right back, you buy a defensive midfielder to cover that right back, because Mikel Arteta, is he going to go another season? And is he really a defensive midfielder? And all of this is going on in what is going to be a short summer because of the World Cup. So I wouldn't be so upset if we get to August and Carl Jenkinson is right back. Don't forget, you then have the month of August in which you can do your last deals once you've sorted out all the important pieces of the jigsaw.
And do you guys, I mean, Wenger's come out and said it's going to be difficult to do any deals before the World Cup. So do you think we'll do the majority of our business, hopefully we do some business, the majority of our business after the World Cup? Ben?
Oh, I am on the fence about right back, as to sort of carry on from what Holic said. I think we've seen in our tip-top games, i.e. Bayern, how important fullbacks are. And I don't know if Jenkinson is capable of that level yet, maybe in time. But I wouldn't be against us spending a very large sum of money on a right back. But by the sounds of things, Aurier from Toulouse seems to be the one that everyone's talking about, and all the journalists. And is it Julien Laurens? He said something about it, and he seems like the sort of most feasible option. But you don't know. But like Holic said, there's more important things, and I think the main thing is to get in an option up front. I've been banging on about someone in midfield all season, but I think you've kind of got to try and get that centre forward, however good he is, or ever shiny, if you want. I think that's the key position that we need to sort out.
And in terms of before or after the World Cup, what do you think we'll do?
I think we'll see Aurier come in before, and then I think it will just be scrabbling after the World Cup. I'm not sure. I think this is our issue. As if are we changing? Are we moving forwards? I understand what he was saying about the World Cup, but I'm not sure if I buy it really, because didn't we buy Thomas Rosicky before the World Cup?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? And then he scored those two fabulous goals, and we were all, well, he's a marvellous player, but we were all led to believe that he was going to be something more than he has been. So I don't know. But what was interesting, that was at the press conference before the Norwich game, Arsene said something along the lines of attack is an area of improvement. It's similar to when we were crying out for central defenders and a 5-foot Russian turned up instead. I think I could see him going with Jenkinson at right back and bringing in a couple of sort of forwards. So, yeah, I think we're going to get if he does go for a right back, I think it'll be Aurier, and that will be before. But I think the majority of it will be when he said after the sort of 15th or 16th, I think it was.
Anything to add to that, Chris?
I think at 12 minutes to midnight on the 31st of August, we will be signing Sebastian Frey, Scott Dan, Jan and Villa, and Patrick
Trabelsi.
And Trabelsi. He's already on his way.
And Kieran Dyer.
Yeah.
And Gareth Barry.
Yeah, Gareth Barry, yeah.
I've said on my blog, actually, I wasn't overly enamoured by the comments about no business is going to be done before the World Cup, because I'd pretty much have a bet with anybody for a pint in the Tolly that there'll be some teams that will be making some signings before the World Cup starts. And I think that it would be nice. I don't know whether or not it's Arsene playing his usual games of, there's no business being done, and then we might surprise you with that little wry smile that he has, but I'm a little bit disappointed that we were already starting to get the rhetoric. The narrative is already being set for the summer of, nothing's going to happen until the World Cup finishes. And then it'll be players are now going on holiday for a week or so we can't get in touch with any players. And then it'll be we've got the Champions League that we need to worry about, getting qualification for that. And it all seems very Groundhog Day. Where's Bill Murray?
I know, it's the worry, isn't it? And I said last week that my major fear for the club and for Arsene this summer is it's going to be a lose-lose situation, because he either puts all of his eggs in one basket again and tries and buys this super-duper striker, and we end up with, say, 2 players, and then fans will say, well, you haven't done enough. But then if he goes and, say, buys 4 or 5, as we said last week, Loic Remy level players, people will be like, no, we wanted that super-duper striker. So we're in a bit of transition here, and this could go either way. So we could have some unpleasant scenes if it doesn't go too well.
The only thing I'd say, though, is that I think next weekend's game has a vital importance as to the feel-good factor at the club. If we win the FA Cup next weekend, then we've got an improved points tally this year. So you could say, our league position hasn't changed, but we're going in the right direction there. We can all see that there's more squad depth in the team, and we've got a cup, we've got a trophy so we can stop the 9 years, whatever it is, 9 years, 200 days and 17 hours and 45 minutes since we last won a trophy rubbish. And I think the feel-good factor will help to carry the club a little bit further, but it'll only go so far before the knives start coming out.
The only thing that bothers me about doing any early season dealing is if you think back historically, when we've been in a Champions League qualifier, which we are yet again, we haven't spent the money until after the qualifier, because that's been so, up until last year, that was critical to what our season's finances would have been. But we do have that financial cushion now. So I would like to think that Arsene was just buying himself a little bit of time, and that particularly as, we've known we're going to be fourth for the last week, already the negotiators are swinging into action in trying to firm up the deals that they will have been working on since January. Because let's not kid ourselves that there hasn't been any tapping up going on by us as well as everybody else. Yes. We know who we want. They know that we want them. Now it's just a question of, okay, when are we going to seal the deals, or are they going to be wanted by someone who's going to pay more than us?
Speaking of getting deals done, I've got Sky Sports News on mute on the TV, and a picture of Jim White came on my TV, and Manchester United have bid for Luke Shaw.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
This is a damage limitation. This is sort of PR damage limitation exercise for them, isn't it? They'll probably spend a fortune this summer once they get.
Where's Evra going?
Yeah, I wonder.
When they're crying out for decent midfielders and some pacey forward players, why would they be going for Shaw first?
Yeah.
Well, that's the trouble, isn't it? But they're losing Vidic, Evra. Where we sort of talk hypothetically about how many players we need, they're honestly going to need about 6 players.
And actually, It's another one that when you're thinking about the summer transfer market, they're going to need a lot of players.
Oh.
Chelsea are going to need the centre forwards that we're going to be looking at.
Yeah.
Manchester United are going to be looking for the midfielders that we're going to be looking at. Paris Saint-Germain will spend some money on anybody. Barcelona are desperate to strengthen their squad, and now that they've had their transfer ban commuted, they'll be going for it. The good quality players that are available will have so many options open to them. We'd better be prepared to spend some money to get what we need.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting.
You
Okay,
forgot the F in there, Holic, in that.
As in a Koku.
Yeah. What a player. That'd be my deadline day signing right now.
The Nigerian prince.
Nigerian prince.
But it's sort of reflecting on the season. What are your reflections of this season, Holic?
No matter what side of any divide you happen to lie on at the moment, I don't think you can help but be frustrated that probably even only a couple of months ago we thought that today might have been a little bit different, that there might have been something at the end. At least we could have kept the challenge going to the end of the season. To have been where we were in January, to have not addressed not only our weaknesses, but what had become an issue with Theo getting injured, with Aaron getting injured. It's a little bit frustrating that today meant nothing. But then again, having said that, there's next Saturday to look forward to, and I've written tonight something about we can put to bed that monkey on our back of it's X years since you've won anything. If we don't do that next week, then it's going to go down as a season. The whole season has come down to 90 minutes next Saturday.
Yeah, it's detrimental, isn't it?
It has. Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
He said, "Judge me in May," and it's almost a case of saying he obviously clearly meant for the league, judge me in May, but actually it's got to the stage where everyone's saying, well, we'll judge you in about a week's time, and very precarious.
Sorry.
Looking at the season then, so if we're kind of looking back at the season, what would be your goal of the season, Holic?
Oh, God, there are 3 to choose from after today, aren't there? And 2 of them were against Norwich.
Yeah.
And I still can't forget that Jack Wilshere one for all sorts of reasons. So, yeah, Jack Wilshere for me.
Ben?
He's taking it. I'm going to have to say Ozil against Napoli.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a good finish. Well, snapped for a Holic there. I've got to say that the Wilshere one, it stands out. I was one of those people that you saw the first goal, and you saw the goal go in, and I sort of looked at it in the stadium and thought, oh, that was a good goal. That was a really good goal, and I was clapping. And it was only when I turned around and looked up at the big screen, which was right above my head in block 5, and I kind of looked up and saw the replay, and it was like, bloody hell, that was an amazing goal. It was like a delayed reaction.
I didn't have the opportunity to do that. I saw it on Match of the Day later on that night, and it just, with every viewing, it got better and better and better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. My shout would be Jack Wilshere against Norwich as well. I just remember being so happy about the goal, but then even the feeling of that it was that good a goal, being happy to kind of be there for that one individual goal. It was it was a cracking goal. We've done player of the season. Who's been, and I know we don't usually do this on our podcast, but who's been, to go to you first, Chris, your disappointment of the season?
Oh, God. Blimey, that's
negativity.
I know, it's not like us, is it?
That is a dilly of a pickle you've just thrown my way. The disappointment of the season, I'm going to say something slightly left of field. I'm going to say Bakary Sagna for not re-signing his contract, because we talked about the continuity of the team, and if he's signed up for another 2 years, we've got a settled back 4. And we're not even having conversations about, we've got to sign another player in another position. We're just focusing on, maybe 1 or 2 central, through the spine of the team, and we're all set for next season. So that would be my big disappointment for the season.
And what about in terms of performance? If you had to pick somebody,
Performance. All right.
Savage.
You can hear the pauses because we don't really do this sort of thing. Thinking on the spot.
Negativity. You'd probably have to say. I'd probably have to say, I mean, you're not going to like this, Steve, but Podolski, at times, is just. I get what he does. He does end product. I love that he has an end product, and I wouldn't want him to be out of the club. He has a role to play, and we need players like that. After having so many years of tiki-taka, the Nielsen style, no sort of bite in the final third, we need players like Podolski, but his contribution to the team, and it's only towards the latter stages of this season, not over the last sort of few weeks actually, but between that sort of February time when he came back into the team, or March time, and then over the difficult period, he really did just go missing. And sometimes he does look like he comes on, and after about 10 minutes, he's blowing out of his arse. He looks knackered when there's balls over the top to chase. So yeah, sorry, Steve.
So the whole season, your disappointment is one of our most lethal goal threats. Okay, Ben.
I'm flirting with the idea of saying Santi, but he has played a hell of a lot of minutes. He played pretty much every game, and then he went on some ridiculous Spain do. They go halfway around the world, didn't they? To Pluto to play a friendly, and he's just knackered. But I think I've got to go with Chris and say Podolski.
Oh, 2 for 2, Steve.
I think if we were being honest, I don't think he would have got many minutes if Walcott was fit. I think you would have seen Walcott on the right, and you would have seen Santi on the left. And then obviously if Wilshere was fit as well, he possibly would have been on the left ahead of Santi, so maybe he wouldn't have got minutes. So I'm probably going to have to say Podolski. I think it was his chance to prove that he was worth his, is it $100,000 a week wages? But yeah, sorry, Steve, I'm going to have to upset you and say Podolski.
So one question for you both. If you look at what he has contributed, you would say that's more disappointing than Monreal?
I don't think Monreal's been a disappointment.
No, I don't either.
Okay.
Because this is a similar thing to the Jenkinson scenario. People have lambasted Jenkinson, but he's somebody that needs, as Holic said, he's somebody that needs regular games, in my opinion. And Monreal's the same. And once Monreal starts to get a run of games, he's not been too bad, in my opinion. He's not been great, and he has made mistakes like at Everton and like at City, but he's always just been a player that's had to just come in and being, he's had to hit the ground running with the other team and his teammates who have all played many, many games and got minutes under their belt.
Yeah, and I'd probably say that your mate Podolski was in front of him in those games. Sorry, I just twisting the knife. I'm twisting the knife.
Can I just clarify? Can I just sort of reiterate though? I don't really like this question because I think all of the players at different times have shown qualities that we haven't seen for quite some time. So I still think Podolski's done okay. It's just he's the least best.
You guys are leaving me an open goal here.
Go on.
Come on, Holly.
There's only one. He who frots taxis. The artist formerly known as the greatest striker that ever lived.
How on earth do we miss that?
Keep him this season? Why did we keep him this season? What a complete and utter waste of money. Paying him his last year's salary.
Oh. Do you know what that was there? That was Ben and I were playing a high line, and you've just Raheem Sterling.
My pacey little gallop through the gap.
Yeah.
I've got a smile on my face. How you two look so silly now.
So, Steve, who was yours?
You and Chris for picking Podolski. No, in the Monreal question, that I agree with you both. I've stood up for him throughout the season, but yeah, I mean Bentner, it's a very strange one. I think we can see that now that Sanogo's fit. I don't think the plan was to play him much, And it's just so surprising, Bentner, because there is the Cardiff goal. He can do certain things, but then you look at other games where he just doesn't look interested. He just swans, like the Chelsea game in the Capital One Cup. He just swans around the pitch and he's thinking about taxis, like you say.
Taxis, and where he can put his genitals.
You should perhaps leave that there.
yeah.
I'm taking
But
pictures of his
it's interesting
shoes.
now, isn't it? Because it was his chance to grab the opportunity. And I was reading something from a journalist from Sunderland. Sort of, he compared him to Connor Wickham. How when Sunderland signed Connor Wickham from Ipswich, I think it was, he did a similar thing. He thought he was the next big thing, and he went out with girls and nightclubs and drinking, and he didn't improve. And then he's been on loan to Leeds and wherever, and Gus Poyet's called him back, and he's scored sort of something ridiculous, like 4 or 5 goals in 6 games, and it's just pure lack of application, and it's going to cost him his career, unfortunately.
And let's not kid ourselves. There's a period up until the last, say, 3-4 weeks. There was a 2-month period after Christmas where poor old Giroud was absolutely having to play so much. He'd gone. He'd completely gone. And the Bentner, who we remember scoring that goal within 30 seconds of coming on against Tottenham, 5 years ago? The Bentner of that time would have been our first choice centre forward now, had he had his thinking head on in February. He'd now be looking forward to a cup final and a winner's medal. And where is he? I don't know, pissing it up the wall somewhere.
Yeah. What team would you field in the final, Holic?
Oh, don't ask me that. So now that everybody's coming back, I haven't got a clue. I'll tell you what I think. Let's face it, we forget the goalkeeping question. Whichever goalkeeper plays, I'm happy with. And as long as the back four, and if they're fit, you're going with Sanya, Koscielny, Mertesacker, and Gibbs for me over Monreal, particularly against Sunderland. The midfield now, given who's been playing, Arsenal's going to go with Arteta, who I probably wouldn't, in all honesty, but he's more likely to last 90 minutes than Flamini. Now that he's back and fit and running, Ramsey will be the other player starting from deep, but will be allowed freedom. You don't know, but it's probably Ozil in the hole. On the right-hand side this is where it gets interesting now. Could it be Cazorla on the right-hand side and Podolski on the left, or do you make room for Jack Wilshere? In which case you kind of force Wilshere onto the right-hand side where he's not at his best, and Cazorla on the left where he's not at his best. But it's Giroud up front, that's for sure. Whatever you do, it's just I've got a feeling Podolski might miss out while we shape the midfield around him.
What do you think, Ben?
I've got to go with Podolski on the left, Santi on the right, and Jack coming off the bench. But apart from that, I agree. As much as we've just slated Podolski, I think he's just on fire at the moment. He was impressive today, and I think he's got momentum. The team have got momentum. I don't think you can change it so much. I think that was the main thing about today, was getting the win and getting the confidence flowing through the veins of all the players. So I think you've got to play the team that's played in the last few games rather than bringing Jack back.
Chris?
Well, I think he will play. I think and want him to play Podolski on the left, and I think he'll do Cazorla on the right and Ozil just sitting behind Giroud. I do wonder if there should be a place for Rosicky in the team, because he does like a big
Great
game.
call.
And
He trusts him, doesn't he?
Yeah, he trusts him, and he's got that. He's a bundle of energy, isn't he? So playing Rosicky on the right and Cazorla on the left, maybe, I don't know. That's a really tough question.
We've got too many central midfielders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Embarrassment of riches.
I think we should just
Exactly.
play. I think we should just play all of our central midfielders and do a flying V flying V
Flying V.
formation from the mighty from the mighty Ducks.
Yeah, I'd agree with most of the stuff you guys said. I'd play Podolski. He got a couple against Hull last time we played him, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'd like to see him play and score loads of goals, and then ask you again who your most disappointing player has been. So we're kind of coming to the end of the podcast now. So what we do now, Holic, is just ask you guys if you've got any closing remarks. So I'll let you have a think about if there's anything you want to say before we close off, and I'll come to you first. Ben, anything to say?
Just on the season as a whole, really. I think as I've said before, it's been an upward curve. We've finished closer to first and further away from fifth, which must have been a realistic target pre-season. Gotta say, disappointed about the large of losing against the bigger teams in the manner that we did. I think that's cost us points against the smaller teams, rather than, I think that obviously the psychological has affected us. Not acting in January when we had control, when we obviously have got control of a situation, and we could have gone out and strengthened in January, and for whatever reason we chose not to. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it's been impressive. And as we've already said, the FA Cup is detrimental, and if we win it, it's going to be fantastic to have that feeling back again.
Anything from you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how good your editing is, Steve, but if in this podcast you can just overlay this next bit that I'm about to say with some of that, I think it's BBC Radio 4 from the 80s, 90s music that goes... So, dear God...
I can just use that.
Yeah, you can. Just repeat that. Dear God, I was there in 2011 and you broke my heart. You genuinely broke my heart when we conceded that late goal to an absolutely shoddy Birmingham team. Please, I'm going to be in the front row next Saturday, just to the right of one of the goals.
Where are you now?
Please, don't get Giroud skewing balls into my face. Please, just let them hit the net. That's it. Please, dear God, if you're listening to this podcast, by some manner of your being and all that is mighty and holy, if you listen to podcasts, hear my call and just let us win.
Make us win. Would you say that Hull were at the same level as Birmingham were?
Yes. Hull are better than Birmingham. That was a shocking Birmingham team.
In bad form, aren't they, Hull?
Hull have stayed up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm just going to add, before I come to you, Holic, if we can win and Giroud can screw a ball into your face, Chris...
Hey.
No, Chris.
Whoa, don't upset the game.
If he hits me on the halfway line, we are in trouble.
Anything's possible. But no, if we can win and Chris can get a ball in the face, that would be fantastic.
Thanks, mate.
So you've got tickets then, Holic?
Yeah, I should be there. Thank you to a very good friend. I lost out in the ballot. The club, contrary to popular belief, the club do not look after their bloggers, but a good mate has seen me all right.
Good. And have you got any closing remarks before we end the
pod? Plea for unity. So easy for people to fall out with each other through various mediums, and yet from a personal perspective, I've had so many good conversations with people who would be seen as being on both extremes of whatever argument happens to be going on at the time. I just wish sometimes we would listen a little bit more before we jump in with our entrenched beliefs and values, falling out with people who actually think as much about the Arsenal as us.
Very good shout. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No,
it's been
thank
fun.
you very much. Good. Hopefully we'll have you on again at some point in the future. And hopefully we'll all be cheering an FA Cup next week.
Yes.
And from us, Suburban Gooners out.
Bye.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Ta-da all.
Bye.